can begin when you're ready.
Great. Let's get started. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this February 5th, 2019 Executive Committee conference call of the North Carolina State Board of Education. I'm Eric Davis, Chair of the Board, and I call this meeting to order. I now ask Dr. Townsend Smith to call the roll to determine that we have a quorum of the board participating. And I note to all listening that the Executive Committee quorum is 4 members. Dr. Townsend Smith.
Dr. Oxendine?
Present.
Ms. White?
Here.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Present.
Chair Davis?
Here.
It's a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend Smith. So board members are reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. So board members, you've seen the agenda for this February 2nd, 2019 meeting and had the opportunity to review it. I ask if there are any requests or changes to the agenda. And if not, I request a motion for approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Dr. Oxendine, second by
Amy White.
White.
Chair Davis, did you say, did I misunderstand you to say February the 2nd, or I just misheard that it's the 5th? I just wanted to make sure
I may have said February 2nd. Thanks for correcting. It is the February 5th, 2019
That's okay
meeting.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you keeping me on my toes. So I'll now ask Dr. Townsend Smith to call the roll to capture the vote to approve the February 5th, 2019 agenda.
Okay. Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, so the motion passes and we have an agenda. So we'll now proceed directly to our report from the FAST NC Steering Committee. And I'll call on former State Superintendent Mike Ward, the chair of the FAST NC Steering Committee for this item. Mr. Ward, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, board members. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you again and bring the steering committee recommendations regarding applications for FAST NC funds. We have quite a number of applications, as you'll have noted in your materials. That's good news. We have the opportunity because of the strong response now to FAST NC to be helpful in a number of places that have suffered because of the storm. I want to start with an application that was received before from Pender County and give you an update on that application. The State Board Executive Committee a couple of weeks back dealt with around 4 applications. Today, of course, we're dealing with around 5 applications. During the discussion of the round 4 applications, we took up an application for just over $72,000 from the Pender County schools. The request was for a generator. The generator that they had used to try and maintain electrical service to their technology equipment failed during Hurricane Florence. The request is for a new generator. The generator that failed was not did not fail as a result of the storm. They were clear about that. The generator failed as a result of its agedness and sad condition. So they were requesting replacement in order to safeguard technology that is harmed by humidity when the power goes down, and to make it possible in subsequent storms to be able to provide, to keep technology and information services flowing among staff and to students. This was a difficult discussion for the executive committee. The board has had a pretty strong predisposition towards replacing things that were lost or damaged as a result of the storm, and this didn't precisely fit that model. The executive committee asked for three things at the end of the discussion and tabled that recommendation. They asked, A, for multiple quotes. Pender has secured 3 quotes. They asked for an indication of whether or not insurance would cover any part of the loss, the damage to the old generator. The answer was a strong no. And the executive committee also asked for information that would indicate that they sought to fund this request through other sources. The Pender County Schools provided a record of their request to the county commissioners, their last request to the county commissioners, in which this request was made but not fulfilled. I bring you that update because we left that up in the air. But I would also, I simply want to update you on the fact that Pender has followed through. We have a potential second funding source. The monies that have been made available to communities and schools for Fast NC purposes. And we've had a preliminary conversation with the folks there, and they'd be willing to entertain a discussion of this request. They're not saying yes or no at this point. They've got a board process as well, but they may be a second avenue of funding for this request. So it's simply an update in case some of you are wondering why it doesn't come up today for action. I just wanted you to have that information. Are there any questions about the Pender Round 4 application for $72,000?
I don't have a question. I have a comment, and I applaud your committee the steering committee for those follow-up questions back to Pender, because I think listening to those questions and Pender's response, certainly in my mind, made it very simple to make a call on it. So those were very good, clarifying follow-up questions, and keeps us out of off the track of receiving similar requests and having to wrap our heads around those decisions in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, we've been sensitive to precedent, and each application represents the opportunity to set precedent, and sometimes those precedents can potentially make it difficult in future applications. So, yeah, the state board has asked great questions and offered great advice around process throughout this Fast NC, the operation of Fast NC over the past several months. And sending us back for clarification on those 3 items was, I think, a really wise thing on the part of the board. And so I'm glad that the update is useful. Shall we proceed to the recommendations for Round 5 applications? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. I'll proceed alphabetically by district, and then because we have so many, I'll try to proceed alphabetically within district. But let's start with Brunswick County. The request by Benton from Brunswick County. This is West Brunswick High School. The principal, Rhonda Benton, is asking for $10,985. You see in the rationale and the budget request that the high school served as a shelter in the wake of Hurricane Florence. As a result, equipment was damaged, and let me just say they were pleased to provide that service to the community, but there was some damage to various kinds of equipment that can't be replaced by insurance, and you see the specific kinds of requests in their budget detail on the final page. So there's some physical education equipment, There is some instructional equipment and materials related to their health services, their health sciences curriculum, including a hospital bed and wheelchairs and bedding that were actually put in service to folks who were using the school as a shelter. And then they need some of those large industrial type entrance mats. The steering committee recommends approval of this request for $10,985 at West Brunswick High School.
This is Amy White. I have to ask, did the school actually have a shoot-away basketball goal?
We were told, yeah, I didn't put that specific question to them. We were told that this was replacement for items damaged or lost, but we posed that as a general question, not as a specific question, not that particular item.
Our high school gymnasium should have at least 2 standing goals and potentially 4 more on the sides. It's a $5,600 expense. I would just want to make sure that there was one there to begin with, and they're not hoping for. It's a fantastic piece of athletic equipment. You know, for former high school basketball coach, it'd be great to have one, but I just want to make sure that they had one and it was indeed damaged.
Okay.
And the intent to replace what was in place before the storm.
Right. That's we can put that specific question about the goal to the school, and if it's the preference of the State Board Executive Committee, we can table this one and come back with this one at a subsequent. We'll be back with round 6 before long, and we can bring this when we talk about round 6. Is that the preference of the Executive Committee?
I would like to ask just a brief question, Superintendent Ward. Is there a question that gets at the point that Ms. White is making in the application process?
There is. We have revised the application instrument with that with this disposition of the board in mind, and the application instrument now speaks in the preamble to the preference of the board or the priority to replacement as opposed to new equipment. We didn't, in the language revision, make that an absolute. Otherwise, we might box ourselves out of a circumstance like the one involving the Pender generator. But the 2 statements, the fact that that's the disposition of the board regarding Fast NC, and the fact that the board, the statement that the board has discretion around the approval of these items, we think is sufficient. But if you like, we could add a specific question that says, does this request replace items that were lost or damaged as a result of the storm?
Well, I think that clarity is, if that is the purpose of the fund, to replace what was there prior to pre-Florence, I don't know. Maybe it isn't. I'm just trying to get at the point that Amy was making, which is a good point.
It is.
Are we purchasing
Absolutely
brand new resources, or are we addressing things that the storm destroyed or damaged?
Here is the statement that we added in the revision. While exceptions may occur, Fast NC funds are typically intended to replace resources that were lost or made unusable by Hurricane Florence rather than purchase resources that were not lost or made unusable by Hurricane Florence.
I think that's fine, hearing it read, because we can make those, as you say, we can debate those issues in our committee.
Just as an addendum to that, we also added the statement based on previous board discussions. Similarly, while exceptions may occur, FAST-NC funds are not intended to address the personal losses of school employees.
Right, okay, right. I'm pleased with that.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Chair, am I hearing that the disposition of the board on this one is to table pending the additional information about the shoot-away goal?
Yeah, I believe I'm hearing the same thing. I mean, the alternative would be to approve contingent on the answer to that question, but if my colleagues would prefer to have the answer before we vote, I think that's the wise way to go.
This is Amy. I would say, table it to be a quick call to the principal. Although, if we table, I anticipate Chair Ward is that we would be back, several weeks again before the next round occurs. I don't want to delay that funding. I just feel like we ought to ask the question. Did they have one or did they not?
Yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks with round 6 applications. So, it's not an immediate response, but we can act on it within 2 weeks. When we do the round 6, when we do the round 6 applications.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so let's just include it in round 6, Mr. Ward.
Okay. All right.
Chair Ward, can I ask a clarifying question while we're talking about this?
Sure.
Excuse me. I guess I'm now a little confused about when we use the term FAST-NC, I've always thought of it as the fund that has been expanded upon, that the legislature restored and was, there for emergency needs under the State Board of Education's oversight. And I think that's why you're bringing these recommendations to us. And then there was this second, I gather, gift made, but it's been under the oversight of communities and schools, but still also called FAST-NC. Do y'all have anything to do with the recommendations for that fund, or is that just gone through some entirely different group? I'm a little confused about the process at this point.
I'd be pleased to provide an update. Mr. Chair, is that one you want to field, or do you want me to speak to that?
I'll give it a shot, Mr. Ward, and then please correct or fill in what I miss. So, Mr. Duncan, in the early establishment of FAST-NC, we anticipated that there might be contributions particularly from companies that the agency has a relationship with, and we felt the need to keep that at an arm's length distance. And so the superintendent engaged with communities and schools as an independent authority to handle those types of contributions. And recently we've learned that there's now an agreement between the agency and communities and schools, which will be part of our closed session conversation tomorrow evening. And so I think it'd be best to pick this conversation up in that meeting. And,
yes,
and then
that would be fine. That would be fine. I'll be happy to wait and get a better understanding then. And I just wanted to understand the mechanics of how we're collectively working together, and I wasn't quite sure, so that's why I asked, and I'm glad to wait till tomorrow to find out.
Yeah, I think to your point, it certainly merits more discussion and greater awareness on the part of the board.
There is significant interest on the part of communities and schools in having a very, very similar approach and serving the same purposes.
Very good. I apologize for breaking the flow. I just and look forward to getting more information. Thank you.
If I could let the committee know that momentarily I'm going to have to depart from the call. I am under some pressure to go to a school and meet with the principal. So I will remain online as long as I can, but I will be departing within the next 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay. We certainly understand, Dr. Oxendine. Let's see, fortunately, that will take us below a quorum, so we'll have to cease.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, we're at the quorum right now. Which is
well, I'm troubled to hear that. I will stay on as long as I can.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll proceed then. Mr. Ward?
The next application is the application from Marsha Britt at Evergreen Elementary School in Columbus County. Ms. Britt is requesting $5,000. And you'll see on the budget detail that $5,000 is for technology, laptops, student materials, paper, pencils, and $1,500 for instructional and teacher materials. It may help the board to know that this request is very similar to the request made by Mr. Brown from Columbus in round 3 of the application process. And there is a similar application from Ms. Thompson. So what you have is, Ms. Thompson is also in Columbus County. What you have is 2 applications for $5,000 for which the board has set precedent. The replacement of technology that was lost and or damaged, and the materials and supplies that you see there. Is there a question? Is the board ready to act on these? We could take these in tandem, or do you want to simply go on through all the, maybe take all the Columbus applications, Mr. Chair, and then vote on all together?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There are no questions about. All right. If there are no questions about Britt and Thompson, the next request is from Phipps, and Ms. Phipps, you'll see, is requesting funds to replace a laptop lost during Hurricane Florence. She uses this information. She is the school social worker, uses a laptop at multiple schools to keep information and data on her students. She took her laptop home during the hurricane. The laptop was damaged because the home was lost. And you see that this is a request for $529.99. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. It's for $600. Tax and shipping are estimates. Any questions about this one?
The only question I have is, was that computer school property?
We assumed that it was. I regret that we didn't ask that because it was used for school purposes. Our assumption was that was school property.
That was my assumption too. I just didn't hear it stated. That's why I asked. So.
Yeah.
I have no questions.
The next application is from Jacob Fonville, Tabor City Middle School. Mr. Fonville made note of the fact that his horticultural facility, his greenhouse, was demolished during the storm, but insurance is covering the replacement of the greenhouse. However, equipment, supplies, and materials for the horticulture program at Tabor City Middle School, those things were not covered by insurance. He makes note of that in the application. You can see in his budget detail at the end of the application the breakdown of equipment and supplies to take care of replacing these needs in the horticulture program. One minor adjustment to the Farmville application, the request is for $6,000. The actual tally is $6,100. I confirmed in a call that the correct amount should be $6,100, and we're recommending to you the amount in the budget detail rather than the amount on the cover page. So we're recommending the approval of $6,100. Any questions about this one? The next application is also from Columbus County. Your file name was Long et al. Means just simply that there were multiple teachers who were party to this request. Long and the other teachers, Ms. Long and the other teachers requested $2,564.75. And y'all, I'm having to juggle back and forth between screens, so sorry for taking a little time there. We have a precedent for the kinds of things that they're asking for. They want to replace classroom rugs for kindergarten and first grade. And you'll see in the budget detail that that's the extent of their request. It's the cost of the carpets and the shipping and the tax. Okay. If there are no questions, we recommend approval of this item, this request. The next item is from Dwight Mullins, or the application is from Dwight Mullins. Mr. Mullins is asking for $600, $450 for a new document camera, $150 for computer speakers. You can see in the detail the purposes to which he puts this equipment in his program. I telephoned him specifically to ask the question about replacement versus new items, and he was very clear that these were items damaged in the storm and that this is replacing equipment he lost during the storm. We recommend approval of this $600. Attached to the Mullins application, if you scroll farther down, is an application from Donna Hammond, also of East Columbus High School. Ms. Hammond is requesting $107.77 to replace a text that was damaged, a text that she's taking for a course that's required by the state, and she provides the detail about the text that she's trying to replace. It's the text called Designing Effective Instruction. We recommend approval of this item. The next application from Columbus County is one from Josephine Spalding, the principal at Hallsboro Artesia Elementary School. Ms. Spalding is asking for $5,750.86. The detail, you can see the detail at the bottom of the first page of her application, where she's asking for computer tables, books for the media center, and classrooms that were damaged during the storm. And the replacement of 5 computers damaged during the storm, replacement of teaching games and classroom carpets. Notice that she made it easy for us by using the word replacement in every instance. Just so you know, we have books. In fact, we've had donated nearly 20,000 books at the warehouse. And she has made a request here for books. And I'll mention to you that 3 of the applications we got in round 5 included requests for money to buy books to restock media centers. Before we deal with those applications, representatives from those districts are actually coming to the state textbook warehouse this week to see what is available that might help meet the needs that they requested in the grant application. And if they can find things that help meet their needs at the warehouse, they'll amend their applications and resubmit. In this case, however, the books that are requested are very specific and are not part of what's available at the state textbook warehouse. The steering committee recommends approval of the Spalding application. The next application is from Evergreen Elementary School from Ms. Thompson. I've already made reference, we've already covered this one when we talked about the application earlier. That is from Ms. Britt. Okay. That concludes the applications from Columbus County. Would you like to Mr. Chair, act on the Columbus County applications and then move on to the others, or how would you like to proceed?
Yes, I think that would be an appropriate way to go through this volume of applications. So, to move forward, I'd seek a motion to approve the Columbus County applications as presented by Mr. Ward. Is there a motion?
Amy White, so moved.
Okay, motion by Ms. White, second by Mr. Duncan. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Dr. Townsend Smith, can you call the roll?
Yes. Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Ward?
Mr. Chair, I beg your pardon. We skipped over two Columbus applications, so we can maybe we can just treat these as a separate action, since we just approved Phipps, Mullins, Hammond, Britt, Thompson, Spalding, Long, and Fonville. The way I have these set up on my computer, I flew right by one by Ms. Tyler and one by Coach Rising. So let me go to the one by Ms. Tyler. The Columbus County application from Ms. Tyler. Let me get that. It's evading me. Ms. Tyler is at Guideway Elementary School. She asked for $15,000. This also was a mathematical error. If you look at her budget detail at the end of the document, you'll see that her request totals $17,200. She has sent in writing a statement that the correct total is the $17,200 in her budget detail. You'll see that she's asking for STEM materials, instructional rugs, 8 desktop computers, and playground equipment. I spoke specifically with Ms. Tyler, and all of these items are replacement items. I wanted to clarify that the computers and the playground equipment in particular were replacement items for things damaged or lost during the storm, and she clarified that they were. The steering committee recommends approval of Ms. Tyler's application.
Okay, and Mr. Ward, just to assist my colleagues, this application is on page 30 of the attachment on eBoard. It's you're following along the series of applications. This is Ms. Tyler on page 30.
And she's last alphabetically in the Columbus applications. I diverted away from that too quickly after Thompson.
So, this is
Amy
White. With regard to the playground equipment, did they have trees fall on that equipment?
We didn't get into that level of detail. I asked her if the equipment was replacement equipment. Frankly, it was the playground equipment that prompted me to call her to ask if it was replacement. And she said that it does replace the playground equipment damaged during the storm.
Okay.
Is that another one about which the executive committee would like additional detail?
Just a general comment. I feel like the principal and the superintendent who sign off on the applications are verifying the integrity of the application. But I do feel like we must do our due diligence just to make sure. So if you're confident and you're bringing it to us, but there is that, again, that degree of skepticism for playground equipment, which is a very expensive replacement cost in a flood situation. It would have to have been damaged by trees, but we don't have that information. Again, we are reliant upon the integrity and the validity as signed off by the principal and the superintendent.
If it's not a problem to defer for 2 weeks, just to get that verification on that, I think would make everyone feel completely comfortable, and that's always a good thing.
This is Amy again. Again, not wanting to complicate the process, and not sure what type of photographic evidence or documentation could be provided to supplement the argument in the application, but any additional details takes out any, cloudiness for us. If I had a picture of the shoot-away goal being used a year ago, then absolutely, if it was damaged, we ought to replace it. If we had pictures of trees that fell on the playground equipment, then that would help us, and we wouldn't have any question in whether or not to replace. And I'm sure these are items in districts that are already struggling with funds to begin with that are, instructional assets to the children and students in place on those campuses.
I'll be glad to follow up and get that additional information. We can bring it back to the state board as we consider round 6 applications here in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Sure thing. The last Columbus request is one that was not in PDF form, and I had all these PDFs lined up on my laptop on the desktop, but I didn't go to the picture file. So let me call your attention to the photos of the application pages from Mr. Rising at Tabor City Middle School. On the 4th page of Mr. Rising's application, you'll see the budget detail. Mr. Rising's application is similar to one that you approved for Pamlico Middle School, Pamlico County Middle School in the round 4 applications. This was a storage facility separate and apart from the gymnasium, and it was one that was damaged during the storm. As a result, they lost soccer goals, uniforms, first aid supplies, training supplies, player cleats, and footballs, as you see outlined in their budget detail on page 4. I spoke with Mr. Rising, remembering our conversation about Pamlico Middle School, and specifically asked if there were any Title IX issues that we might ought to have in consideration, whether or not there were other losses beyond these that they were not requesting to replace that might raise Title IX questions. And he was clear that there were not. This was, again, specifically a storage building apart from the gymnasium in which these items were housed. We recommend approval of the $7,100 requested by Coach Rising. There are no questions about that one. Rather than act on a single Columbus recommendation, you also have a single recommendation from Jones County. Jones County was particularly hard hit by the storm. In Trenton, two schools, Trenton Elementary School and Jones County Middle School, were damaged extensively. The two schools in Trenton, Trenton Elementary School and Jones County Middle School, those are the two schools where representatives are coming to the state textbook warehouse today. So we're not bringing those recommendations to you at this time, those applications to you at this time until they've had a chance to see what they can get at the warehouse and revise their applications accordingly. But I did want you to know that Jones County is stepping up to help out their kids and their colleagues. The Jones County High School applications from Ms. Hines. And if you go to that application, you'll see that they are requesting a kiln to replace one of the kilns for the high school was damaged, and she offers a pretty significant amount of detail. However, I did talk to her specifically with a question about the iPad that she's also requesting. She provided a supplemental email that indicates that the iPad for the replacement kiln, the iPad is an adjunct to the kiln. There are apps that work in tandem with the kiln. I also asked about the camera that they're asking for. They lost a camera, and the camera replaces the camera that they lost. The request here is for $9,925. You may also have noticed that in addition to the arts program that this kiln provides a resource for, they have a community project called the Empty Bowls Project. And so it's an art project, but it's also a community project. The committee recommends approval of. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. My question can follow. It doesn't have any impact on approval.
Yeah, so anyway, the steering committee recommends approval of this request. The next set of applications, go ahead.
Yes, and here's my question. It may be a moot point, period, but curiosity. Any of the equipment that might require specialized installation, I'm assuming that those kinds of things will be handled by the district, or could come back and request dollars for that.
Yes, and I think our assumption is that having the equipment brought and made operational is part of the amount that they're requesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and keep in mind that, but they also know that they can request that there are additional rounds. In the letter that tells districts and applicants that they've been approved, we let them know that what the cycle is for additional application rounds. And we also make clear their obligation to document their purchases and the timetable on which they're expected to expend the money that's made available to them.
All right, that answers my question.
Would you like to go ahead and deal with the remaining applications, or act on the Rising application in Columbus and the Jones County recommendation?
How many more do we have, Mr. Ward?
We have seven more, it looks like.
Okay, let's go ahead and act on these. I believe it's three, and if you could restate the one from Columbus.
Yeah, the one from Columbus is from Coach. I'm sorry. Yeah, the one from Columbus is Coach Rising at Tabor City Middle School, and the one from Jones County is Jones County High School, Ms. Hines, Hines.
Okay. Then is there a motion to approve those two applications from the Fast NC Steering Committee?
This is Olivia, and I make that motion.
Motion by Dr. Oxendine. Is there a second?
Second. Excuse me, second.
By Ms. Thank you. Second by Ms. White. Dr. Townsend Smith, can you call the roll?
Yes. Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
The motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Ward?
Committee members, the public schools of Robeson County submitted several applications. Let me call your attention first to the application from Deep Branch Elementary School. It was submitted by Lakeisha Rebels. There are 4 applications in the document that was submitted by Ms. Rebels. I want to deal with 3 of those applications to begin with. Ms. Rebels, Ms. Lowry Bell, which is the second application, and Ms. Baker, which is the 4th application in that document. All submitted the same request, and if you look at the budget detail, you'll see that it's the same. It's the same budget detail. They are 3 teachers at Deep Branch Elementary School, and they are requesting Chromebooks, 20 each. I checked with Ms. Revel, spoke with her a couple of times, in fact, and they've made the case for having 20 Chromebooks funded for each classroom. The actual losses as a result of the storm, according to the teachers, was 22 devices. And so the committee is recommending to you that we cover replacement of the devices that were actually damaged by the storm, 22 devices, and that would total, rather than $5,842.20 for each classroom, roughly between $17,000 and $18,000. We are recommending $6,006 to cover 22 devices rather than 60. I hope that makes sense. Across 3 classrooms, 22 devices were lost. The request was for 60 devices. We're recommending that you approve $6,006 to cover the devices that were lost. And that's for Revels, Lowry Bell, and Jacobs. I'm sorry, not Jacobs, Baker. I'll also point out for you that in this document, which included the 3 applications, the Baker application was not signed by the superintendent, so you have a separate file that is just from Ms. Baker that is the same application, but with Superintendent Wooten's signature. Superintendent Wooten signed a series of applications for round 5, and we were told she just missed that signature page. So anyway, questions about the recommendation regarding Revels, Lowry Bell, and Baker?
So, Chair Ward, was it just an oversight by the superintendent that she just missed a page in a stack of documents that needed to be signed?
That's what we were told, but Ms. Baker went back and got it a signed signature page, got the superintendent signed signature page. So in addition to Baker's application in this long document with 4 applications, you have a separate file that is the Baker application with signature. May I call your attention now to the Jacobs application, which is also in the document submitted by Ms. Rebels. This is an application from Prospect School. It's a request for $2,800. The request is submitted in order to fund participation in the science program Muddy Sneakers. It covers the student registration for Muddy Sneakers. It covers transportation costs for the trips associated with Muddy Sneakers, and you see the detail. It's the mileage cost and the driver cost. I called and spoke to Ms. Jacobs about this, again with the notion of replacement versus, it's a little finer detail in a case like this, but she actually made the case that it is replacement because this was part of the plan for science instruction. Her principal is supportive of the Muddy Sneakers program. Steering committee member June Atkinson described it as an excellent science program, one that's well aligned to the science curriculum. And the district, because of the storm, pulled back on resources to support participation in this and other kinds of programs that involved students going off campus. And so with those details in mind, the steering committee took this as a circumstance that can be interpreted as loss as a result of the storm and a request for money that replaces or makes good that loss. We recommend approval of the $2,800 in Ms. Jacobs' request.
I want to be clear that this request is for the replacement of replacement of resources.
Yes, that was what I called her about, and she said that this was part of the plan for the school year and that the district backed up on this plan because of losses in the storm, and in fact broadly curtailed student trips off campus as a result of the storm and the circumstances. I guess
Amy Brito has left the conference.
Did I may have misunderstood or misheard something. Will the funds be used to pay participation fees?
Yes. The breakdown. Let me go back to that page.
I don't understand how the storm affected that.
Her description was that the county said no to what had originally been yes to participation in the Muddy Sneakers program. The plan had been to participate in the Muddy Sneakers program during the year and to be funded by the district in doing so. The county rescinded that in the wake of the storm, and this is a request to make good, a request that's supported by our principal as well to make this opportunity available again. I hope I'm clear in what I'm saying.
I suppose where I'm fuzzy is, would the school district have paid the fees regardless of the storm? Who would have paid the fees?
Yeah, it's a $10 fee per student per trip. I'm understanding your question now. For the storm, I'm not sure. We didn't put that question to her. makes note in her detail
I would be in full support of using the dollars to pay for lost science resources that are necessary to take part in Muddy Sneakers, but I'm not in support of paying fees, whatever those fees are covering.
So, Ms. Dr. Oxendine, it's a debate of tangible versus non-tangible. So these are basically operating costs versus replace of tangible damaged items. Do we have that clarification in our application?
Otherwise, we're supporting the initiative in full rather than paying or using these funds to pay for the instructional materials, supplies, resources that are necessary to take part in the event.
Would it help if I revisited this with Ms. Jacobs and put the question specifically, was the original plan to cover student fees, the $10 times 2 trips times 96 kids, was the plan to cover them initially, in which case the fact that the district rescinded its commitment to cover the fees for Muddy Sneakers, it would be replacement, it seems to me. But would it help if we got more information? Is this one that we need to table?
I would feel better about gathering more information.
Agreed.
Okay. I'd be glad to get that information. Okay, that's all of the applications that are part of the document that has Rebel's name attached to it. You have an application from Ms. O'Clair in Robeson County. This is a request for $7,254. Ms. O'Clair speaks specifically to replacement. She is at Magnolia Elementary School, and she speaks to replacement. Let me scroll down there. These are instructional materials that were damaged, that mold from floodwaters caused. And you can see that she's actually provided a checkout cart document that prices these out. So multiple instructional materials. The committee recommends approval. The steering committee recommends approval of Ms. O'Clair's request for $7,254.20. Mr. Chair, that completes the Robeson County applications. We have one other application, if you'd like to include it as in that group, and that's the Whiteville City application. You want me to go ahead with that one? Or do you want to act on Robeson County independent of the Whiteville application?
Yeah, let's go ahead and act on Robeson County, particularly in the event if we start losing board members, at least get those done. So is there a motion to approve the steering committee recommendations for the Robeson County applications?
So moved. This is Olivia Oxendine.
Motion by Dr. Oxendine, second by Ms. White. Dr. Townsend Smith?
Yes. Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
So the motion carries. Thank you. And Mr. Ward?
We have 2 applications remaining, true to form, and I hope the board will forgive me. There's just so much going on my desktop right now. There was one other Robeson County application. That's the application from Mr. Cox, Dr. Cox, rather. I had set that application to one side because we are recommending disapproval in this case. Dr. Cox is requesting iPads for students, for student use. And in conversation with Mr. Cox, he indicated that these iPads would provide great instructional support to youngsters, but they are not replacements. These were not devices that were lost during the storm. This would be new purchases. And given the guidance we've had from the board previously, we believe that the appropriate recommendation here is to recommend disapproval of the $61,000 and change requested by Dr. Cox.
Chairman Ward, let me ask a quick question on that application request. Is the signature of the superintendent affixed?
I beg your pardon. I closed it too quickly. Give me just a second.
I'm just curious. All right. If you can do that, I'm curious. I know superintendents are very busy.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My point is, I know that superintendents have a lot of things put in front of them, and they sometimes read, sometimes they just sign. But this is clearly not within the scope of what we fund.
Yeah, this was not. We don't accept an application, or we don't act on an application without superintendent's signature, and the superintendent's signature is affixed.
Thank you.
So we have a recommendation to disapprove the request from Dr. Cox. The last item is in Whiteville City Schools. Mr. Chair, do you want to deal with the Cox application separately, or go ahead and deal with this and the Whiteville, with the Cox application and the Whiteville application together?
Yeah, we'll deal with those together.
Okay. And I apologize, board members. This application is from Rachel Smith at Edgewood Elementary School in Whiteville. She's the principal there. This is another one where we had a math issue. There's a $1,200 request on the front. The actual tally in the budget detail is $763.50. We have a written confirmation, email confirmation from her that the actual request is for $763.50. And the request in this instance, you'll see, is her request for safety supplies. These are the staff radios that were damaged. You see the 2 Motorola radios and chargers that were damaged in the storm. These are replacements. And then the buckets for PE supplies and the art supplies. Total of $763.50. We recommend approval.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Ward?
Mr. Chair, I think that does it.
Okay.
We have the Cox and Whiteville.
Yes, so we have 2 items left to decide. One is a recommendation on the Cox application to not approve, and then the second is a recommendation on the Whiteville application to approve. Is there a motion to that effect?
Move approval of the items as suggested.
Second.
Motion by Ms. White and second by Mr. Duncan. Dr. Townsend Smith, is there any discussion?
And I'm just taking moving approval to mean that includes the handling by the committee of the decision not to go forward with Dr. Cox's application.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, Dr. Townsend Smith, can you capture the vote?
Yes. Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan,
Yes.
Chair Davis.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
So the motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Board, anything else on today's agenda?
just a quick update. Board members, you'll recall that we raised about $425,000 in the North Carolina Education Fund. Raised may not be exactly the right term. We've raised about $75,000. And then the General Assembly approved the use of $350,000 in FAST-NC. With the actions that were taken today, assuming approval of the 3 items that were tabled, the total expenses out of the fund to date for FAST-NC would be $192,000, a little over $192,000. And again, that assumes that the West Brunswick, Tyler, and Jacobs applications would be approved. I'm not assuming that that will be the case, but that's the tally that I worked up for you.
Chairman Ward, I'm wondering if at some point we could have, and I know that you have this somewhere in an Excel spreadsheet, but it would be interesting to see the total, the bottom line of funds that are going to each school district. Maybe, in a few months, have a report as part of your report to the state board. Would be interesting to see how this all looks at the bottom line level per district.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dr. Rothstein. I think that'd be a great suggestion and give us the overall picture of how FAST-NC is impacting districts and schools and how we're properly using the funds that have been entrusted to us.
Absolutely. General Assembly might be interested in seeing that Excel spreadsheet too.
Yes.
Is the committee planning on distributing all the money that we have or holding back on some for the inevitable next natural disaster we have?
Mr. Vice Chair, we'd be pleased to be guided by the board on that. We have announced 9 application cycles. Round 6 closes this coming Friday. With the total that I shared with you, and if you were to add in the Pender application against what is a little over $1 million in resources, we're not laying claim to the communities and schools funds, but they've indicated that they will be putting those funds to FAST-NC type purposes. We're a ways out from exhausting all those funds. I think we'll have a better feel after the next couple of application cycles regarding what the need continues to be and what the interest continues to be in the FAST-NC funds, and we can better advise you of how deep we need to dig at that point. And we'll also have more information about how we'll collaborate with communities and schools at that point as well. They may start shouldering some of these applications.
Very good. That's understandable, and that'll be helpful to look at.
Chair Ward, I just want to thank you for the diligence that you have given to this process and to this remarkable opportunity to replace what was lost during the storms. I know it has been quite a bit of your time, and as I'm thinking about time, it makes me think of 2 thoughts. One is that school districts 4 months out of the storm should have already identified items that were lost or damaged. And so knowing that you put a time limit of 9 cycles, it does seem like we should be communicating to our districts that the opportunity to apply for FAST-NC funds is quickly coming to a close. so that you and your team are not working through the summer to try to shoot these funds out to areas that are hit. My point is there really should be no new discoveries from districts at this point, and districts need to know that this is not an open window that will continue until, into the next year. And I want us to be wise and protective of your and your committee's time.
Thank you very much. This has been a labor of the heart, and I appreciate that kind thought on your part. We agree with you. We're approaching a point where districts ought to know and ought to have applied. We have tried to recognize that in some instances there have been good reasons for the delay. In Onslow, they wanted to be real clear about what things would be and not be covered by insurance, and so they held up on some applications. You'll recall that we had one Onslow application previously. We have two more that we've already received as part of the round 6 applications. So they've resolved some of their concerns and issues, and applications are starting to come from Onslow, which, as you'll recall, is one of the worst hit of the districts. In a couple of other instances, districts were just overwhelmed with all that was going on, and frankly had not seen some of the Fast NC information, and so I started making calls to individual superintendents to make them aware. Public charter schools are just now, as a result of our collaboration with their association director, even though the information's been going out, we're just now getting a sense that public charter schools that were impacted by the storm are aware of the applications. So we think we've finally gotten decent saturation of information out into the community, and the last cycle that we've announced is one that would conclude on March 22, so a little over a month from now. Maybe at the next executive committee meeting, we could, if the board is ready to do it, you could give us a sense based on what we see in the number of applications, the amount of money requested, give us some guidance on whether or not you want to extend beyond that 9th cycle.
Yeah, Mr. Ward, we can certainly do that. I think one other consideration we'll have to keep in mind is the General Assembly put into statute that the $350,000 that they replenished into the education fund are required to be used for Fast NC. So I think that part's pretty clear. The remaining funds above and beyond the $350,000, I think we have some discretion on. Okay. Well, Mr. Ward, thank you. I add my thanks to your personal efforts and those of other members of the committee for bringing this relief to our students and this opportunity for the board to support you. So thank you so much. That concludes our business today for the Executive Committee of the State Board of Education. I'll now ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Olivia Oxendine.
Motion by Dr. Oxendine. Is there a second?
Second, Amy White.
Thank you, Ms. White. Dr. Townsend Smith, can you call the roll?
Yes. Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Good morning. This is Olivia.
Has left the conference.
Vice Chair
Yes.
Duncan? Okay. Chair Davis?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Motion carries, and we are adjourned. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Amy White has left the conference.